What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday live stream. Today we are digging deep into Triton with Ehsan. How you doing?
Hey, good mate. How are you? Wait a
Excellent.
sec. I'll just try to get you loud enough. Here you go.
All right. How's that on your end? Everything good?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think it's my phone kind of thing, but it's fine. Don't
Okay.
worry. I can hear you.
All right. Well,
It's just the bubbling and stuff from the tank right now. So it's
welcome from the other side of the world to the stream. Appreciate you joining me today.
yeah. Thank you for inviting me, mate. That's awesome. That's really cool. Like I had another one yesterday. Had a live with Brazil for 2 hours.
Oh, nice.
But this is much nicer. It's much nicer because that wasn't at night, and now it's like 10 o'clock here.
Oh,
So it's
perfect.
this is like heaven for me. Heaven.
Well, good morning. I guess a couple things start out. So not everyone fully knows or understands what Triton or the Triton method, I guess, what is. I'm sure a lot of people know of your products, but do you want to give a quick understanding of how you explain to someone new or not fully familiar with kind of what the Triton method is, like, or that kind of concept or methodology in reefing?
Yes. So realistically, when I was in Orlando, I realized that there's a lot of turnover. So a lot of people are actually new to the hobby and they don't really know what Triton is. And at its core, Triton is what created the Triton method. So Triton, my company, is the company that my dad, my mom, we are kind of family business. And in Germany, we created all this stuff that you know right now, like ICP testing, HPLC testing, Endoc testing that we are only ones doing it in the moment. And all the concentrated solutions, the single trace element solutions, that's all us. So we created all of this stuff, right? And the Triton method kind of is the combination of all these modern tools that we invented in the past. So right now, in America and in Canada, a lot of people will do ICP tests, like IMS or OES, doesn't matter. Kind of ICP is Triton, right? So you literally doing one of our ideas and implementing a part of the Triton method into your daily aquarium hobby, right? Or some people are doing single trace elements, like they have all the little bottles or big bottles or whatever. They don't, and also these people are all doing the Triton way of thinking because that's what we invented. So for a lot of people, this is kind of not the, because it's kind of de-linked to each other. It's like one part this, one part this, one part this, which was always in our hobby that case. But when you combine them, you actually get the Triton method. And the Triton method is based on knowledge, on transparency, on stuff that the reef keeper knows. And that's what makes it so successful in the world, right? So right now we run 5 ICP labs around the world. We are the only company that is able to do that, right? And we have Brazil, we have Los Angeles, we have UK. So we have a service worldwide, right? Which is needed. And on the other side, what people do not understand is that to create all these things and put them all together and make them so mighty, you need to have an approach that is very reef keeping based. And we are all in this company reef keepers. So it's very important for us.
I appreciate that aspect.
It's a very important thing because, in this hobby, a lot of companies, they're actually not reef keepers. The CEO, so it's my company, I'm the founder and I'm the CEO. But he would just come in to make money, right? In my kind of case, it was the opposite. I was a reef keeper and then created the company to kind of go the next step, which I obviously did, right? And it's gone around the world. So when you look at this system behind me, that's a typical Triton system. So yeah, they're crazy, fish. I will show you in a second. But what we do is we supplement the tank, but we actually supplement the filter. So the Triton method is a filtration method. A lot of people do not understand that, right? So the filter is supplemented by something that we call infusion. So it's in that box that you normally have in Core 7, or, you can buy it singly even, you can run a calcium reactor and then use that little bit, which is boosting your ability of algae to kind of metabolize, right? And a specific way we kind of put this filter up, it's always the same way. It's a very standard way, very easy, the way we would normally, keep soft corals in the past. And now you can reach really high levels of reef keeping without doing any water change, right? So that's kind of the TRITON method. It's kind of, create a baseline of zero. So the water comes in, gets filtered by the algae. The algae has everything it needs. We supplement everything that all the other filtration parts take out. And when it goes up, it's always the same. So it's always a baseline. And that's why we call them the base elements. From the start, this is like 17 years ago, we called them like that, So realistically, we never change anything to this. And it's a standard, and it's the only holistic way of reef keeping. So, I'm sure you guys know Salem. He a young guy, he came up and, he is very scientific thinking. And he already went that way, say, holistic way. And we are the holistic way for 17 years now, So realistically, this is a big problem solver for reef keeping. And nobody else has it because, like I say, kind of nobody went that path.
So I know there's like the method with algae and there's a method without algae. In your opinion, how important is using those macroalgae in your system?
No, the method is not without algae.
Okay.
So the TRITON method is only with algae.
Is there like other methods? Is there like one if you don't have a refugium?
Other method is for people that don't have a refugium, but then you only use, the concentrated solution. So listen, when I started this, just to make sure everybody can follow. When I started it, my focus was on creating a holistic method.
Mm-hmm.
So people can go in a shop and just buy any coral and any fish, like me, just because that's me. I'm going to the shop, and I think O was on your show too, right?
Yeah.
O. So yeah, sorry to be a bit, I need to tell this story. It's just hard to otherwise understand.
Yeah.
So I'm gone with O, with Greg, and with Luis, Aqua Killer, into worldwide corals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of them are different, right? Like Greg is running around socializing. Lewis is just, all over the world and just, talking to Jules and, other guys.
Yep.
And O is just running to his shop and look at fish and coral. And I kind of see him want to buy one. And he's like, oh, look at this. This is so cheap. It's like a white tail, whatever. And it's true. This happened. I saw. And I'm a bit of O. Right. So when I'm going somewhere, I really want to buy something. And I really, I didn't like always to go in there. And I was 12 when I started this hobby. So I was like, to the guy that owns the shop, he's like, can I keep this coral? Is it hard to keep? Like, is it this and is it that? And what I want for our hobby, or what I wanted with this method, is somebody to just go in there and say, nah, I buy this one because it's looking good and my son likes it. And I'm going for this fish and I'm going, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of the mentality you actually want. It's not be feared of something, right? Yeah. And so when we started and creating things, this was our focus. So I wasn't focused on creating a very high dense solution for putting it in this tank. I based it on barling, but the barling method. So the two-part, the standard two-part bicarb. So I had the barling method, and then I added that infusion, which is what we kind of, like let's say that was the base of our science back then, to find out what the algae needs, right? And so you kind of sell this together. It's not needed to be together. So the infusion is separate in this case. And then we sell it. And then at one point, so it wasn't making sense to sell barling alone because that's available anyway, right? So at one point, but we went the next step and we created Core 7, which is 7 times more dense than barley, right? And at that point, it made sense. So people were asking, can I buy this base supplementation, but without the infusion in it? So because I don't have algae. So if I add this stuff, then algae will grow in my main tank, which is true.
Fair.
So we split. Yeah. And so we called it the other methods because it kind of works with all other methods, while, the base elements is still just for the full TRITON guys, so it includes the thing.
That makes sense. Okay.
Otherwise you would be our customer, you pay extra because you buy another, that's not making sense. So this is why we have the two versions.
Okay, that makes sense.
But realistically, it is just a benefit of having a more dense solution.
Yep.
That's the benefit you buy when you buy Core 7 reef supplements, right?
Everything's all in a sense.
Just to let you know. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I guess just for my own curiosity, is there any thoughts or mentalities about like mixing it with, calc or calcium reactors, or kind of like a hybrid supplementation versus, just straight up Core 7?
Yeah, no. When you use an infusion, you can do whatever you want. So in this tank, for example, I would use a calcium reactor and core 7 because that balances my pH very well.
Hmm.
And this tank will be a very high metabolism tank. So that's 700 power on the bottom. So it's crazy, like we gonna beat a lot of things, But realistically, you can just listen. It's an honest way of reef keeping, right? So we have little trace elements, like micronutrients, you call them, for the algae, right? And you can buy them separate. As soon as you can do that, you can run the system with whatever supplementation for calcium and magnesium you want.
Yeah.
There's no, you know what I mean? Like there's no secret to, magnesium and calcium. That's stupid. That's not what we do, right? So yeah, now even in this tank, that's a calcium reactor half. We have a calcium reactor maybe 70/30 on the cancer aquarium. That's a really big kind of, they've run it 2-3 years now. That tank all Triton. Around the world, there's many options, but in some way, most of the people do the core 7 because again, it's so dense. It's so, it's a bit expensive right now in North America, but we're working on that. So it's going to be
Solid.
a
I
bit
like it.
cheaper too. The tariffs are helping us a lot. So the thing, but it will help. It will work. But so you can always jiggle around. Also, if you imagine, you have run a Triton tank like that, and then you don't have, for any reason, you can't get there. I mean, we are not a massive industry, right? So let's imagine there is a boat that can't hit the port for any reason, and then you can't get base elements for any reason. It's not a problem because you just go and run your tank with that infusion bottle, until you can get it in. Like
Hmm.
this is a very important thing too. A lot of other systems, methods would struggle with that. So also something that is based on our global reach right now,
Yeah.
that we kind of always need to make sure people have the supplementation.
No, exactly. Okay, question in the chat. Have you made any changes to the method since you first created it? Any adjustments or perfection or tweaking, or has it changed over time, or is it essentially the initial core?
Yes, we tweaked it. We tweaked it, but very much behind the scenes, and it's very little changes we do. So it's based on what we learn from all the ICP testing around the world, right? So we do a lot of science on reef keepers, okay? So that's why when I go with, I'll look at him, and I look at Louis, and
Study them.
it's a bit of I'm a bit sick in that point, like a bit, but realistically, yeah, we adapt. We look what's kind of happening in their tanks. What is, there's a lot of things that we look at after we do a test. I'm still doing all the uploads on my own. So every test that is running over Triton, I'm the guy that is quality controlling them at the end of it.
Yep.
And like I say, it's just we have proven all these things to work, right? And this is the way they work, right? So realistically, yes, we have done changes. We don't always tell people about it because they get feared, but we're very careful with everything we change. So it's not a massive change. We never change anything here. It's like little things in infusion sometimes change, but also not that much. I would maybe, if I would guess right now, I would say maybe in the 17 years we changed 10 times something to it,
Okay. Little
And
tweaks.
the last time, and the last time was the biggest tweak was when we created that flex version where you can mix a 2-part out of it too. That's
Nice.
kind of the biggest tweak, but not really major. Nothing you should be concerned of.
Okay. Okay, Zo Snow. Is core 7 supposed to always be dosed in equal parts, or is it okay to adjust the dosage for each part based on consumption? Oh, calcium egg.
No, it is okay to adjust it. There is no point to it anymore. This is also an adjustment we did in the past. So because we kind of try to separate all the infusion into one of the elements, so you're not running, and you don't make it, then you would jiggle around with the trace elements too. You should try to keep number like the one that carries like all the trace elements, which is number one, a bit like in the 4-part number one, a bit consistent, right? So if you try to keep that up with, with the alkalinity, with the 3A, 3B, that would be a good thing to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it is, again, it is, we don't see any real harmful things or things that go out of hand because you normally just adjust a little bit up. You're dosing the whole 2, which is the calcium, and don't you use any alkaline. Then it will be something totally wrong, right? So yeah, that's fine. There's no issue. And you always can ask us too if you're worried. You send we're very reactive. You just send an email or, on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, just ask us. No problem at all.
Yep. Is Devon going to run Triton? I've never run the full core 7. I will probably try this at some point. I'm also learning myself here.
No worries. Go.
Oh, Acro Killer, Reefino, they're both in the chat too. So
yeah, Acro. Yeah, Louis is on.
yeah, Lewis and Noah are both in here. Liz is in here too. She says hi. It's like my favorite.
Yeah,
people.
I've not said anything bad about you. Oh, and Louis. I just said I'm a very much mix of you both in reefkeeping. I'm very much.
Yep, special blend. I don't know if they just joined or they're here for a bit, but they're in the stories earlier.
Yeah, they like that.
Alyssa, I think we all wish we knew this about 4 years ago. The whole mentality about being able to keep just like anything you want essentially and it being successful is a big one. I know when I first started reefing, I never knew about, mixed reef, non-mixed reef, what kind of tanks. I'm like, oh, that coral's nice. Let's get that one. Oh, that's cool. Let's get that one. So, I mean, all I know is mixed reef since day one, but so it's a good mentality.
It is. Look, it's also like, I think we're coming from a point where, there's a lot of sales. I told the boys too, like, I really do not like that sales pitchy kind of things to it. And there's so much happening in this industry. I just saw a video about a guy warning people about, and he's a Canadian guy, warning people about like detox killing fish. Like it's like very, very crazy what we're just hitting America now. And then like, again, we're kind of popping up and then all these people get feared and put things out. And I don't know. It's just like a very strange little world for itself. But I don't think it needs to be like that, Yeah. And nowadays, it should be fun, It's.
I agree,
yeah,
100%.
Yeah. I don't know where it's coming from and why all this stuff kind of happens all the time in this industry. But I felt the last 17 years that I created Triton, that mindset kind of really grows, right? And the mindset is, like we want to know, we want to learn, and we don't want to judge, right? So it's really a point of understanding that. It's the same that we do our science here, I mean, we're the only ones doing it. Like nobody else is doing it, right? Like we're here, we have a boat, we have a research vessel, we go out, we sample water. And
that's
Julian
awesome.
is the guy. Yeah, it is absolutely, it's fascinating. If you want, or can tell you all the stories? And I had a good talk that maybe took 5% of it on Reefapalooza, and you can still watch it, right? But
just because I have it, you sent me the picture of your research vessel boat earlier. I was like, that's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Well, hang on. Just go in there. Yeah, somebody's coming in.
Okay.
Just go in the shed. Sean's waiting in there, man. Just go in. No worries. Sorry, somebody's.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, quick question on the chat before I forget about this one. 3A and 3B, are they the exact same? You can dose one from one head, one double the amount. Let me read this. So are 3A and 3B identical, or do they need to be combined in equal parts? I'm only using 3 dosing pumps.
No, they're identical. You can put them together.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very much, a lot of people do that. So they free up 1 dosing pump. No problem at all.
Okay, right. Perfect. Now, another question. So I know you're basically the only one that does Endoc. How important is that of a test to pay attention to?
So I created Endoc, again, some history, right? So we created ICP testing, and ICP testing kind of covers 90% of people, right? Like that's really, success is like 90%. It's based on error correction. So you see what you're doing wrong, and then you just go for it. It's not based on supplementing the tank. Another very misconception, because other people like to make money on little bottles and they push them hard and they want you to buy them and they say they're essential. Realistically, they're not. So when you're doing a Triton test, you will see a lot of things green still being 0. It means nothing will happen. But if you add them, you can test them out, right? And Endoc is kind of an add-on. So for the last 10%, right, that we couldn't solve issues on, we brought Endoc to look into the nutrient, to look in the side of organic carbon. And it is quite important for me and for a high level, really high level reef. And for places where, like in the UK, for example, where they have a lot of, they do a lot of gardening, these people, and then they have pollen and stuff contaminated. So things that are just from outside, but not like worldwide super important. I would always say for people that do bacterial dosing, like bacteria and organic carbon, they obviously put in organic carbon. Do ammonia, like ammonium or amino acids and stuff like that.
Yep.
For these people, I would check it from time to time because you're dosing blind, absolutely blind, and it's good to know where you're at, right? Also for people that do dosing like 1-part solutions, the new 1-part solutions, that's all organic carbon, right? So also for them, I created it, but like for somebody who's doing TRITON method, for example, it is a yearly test.
Okay.
It's not really, you know what I mean? Like just not really important. If you have problems, you can have a look at it, but mainly ICP is the way to go.
Okay. No, and then as for the average hobbyist, how often would you advise that they do an ICP test to kind of get that pulse on their tank?
Yeah, so that depends on 2 things. One thing is like how important is that tank? How costly is the tank, for example? Like if you look at Polar Reef, I would do every week a test because it's a massive tank, and it's full of stuff that is so costly. So, that's just security wise every week. Not for dosing though, it's just to make sure everything is fine, right? And I did testing on mine like every week because it was next to the lab.
That's nice and convenient.
Yeah, just to let you know. I mean, I did my research on it too, but it's kind of the thing. If you have an average normal tank, like let's say 500 liters, like 125 gallon, whatever it is, right? I would try to keep the amount low, but it depends what you're doing. If you're a very experimental guy, like Aquakiller would be, like if you're a person that enjoys that like homemade knowledge, which is okay, I would do it every month just to make sure you're not messing up something because the ICPs, I created it because it's kind of in between 2 things. We always try to avoid mistakes and do everything right, okay? And then if we don't do it right and don't avoid something bad, then the next thing is our corals die, which is a really extreme situation. Like you have either or, and that's really what you want to inhibit. And the TRITON ICP is coming in between. So it's like, I mess up something, and then I'll fix it so my coral doesn't die, right?
Yeah.
So if you're experimental guy every month, and if you're not running the TRITON method, if you run the TRITON method, you're holistic. So we check everything anyway. Like there is all the supplements going in there. I checked ICP. Like you really can't get that much error. So we do that because we want to stretch the time between the ICPs. So normally I would say every 3 months is absolutely okay. For a TRITON tank, TRITON tank. Every other experimental method, like every other non-holistic method, I would say every month.
Okay, that's fair. I know I'm terrible for experimenting just from doing YouTube and trying different things, and I probably should do it more often than I do it.
I just make, it's not, it depends on what you're experimenting with. When you're experimenting with strontium, that's fine, but when you're experimenting with like chromium or cobalt or something dangerous, then do it more often, okay? Make sure that happens.
Oh, that's fair. So with the Endoc side, what's the thoughts too on, carbon, or do you use ozone on any of your systems? Kind of curious your thoughts on those.
No, we run a very natural system. There is a lot of benefits that this algae gives you. Like, I mean, I can show you some of the fish here. If like, like they're not out because they think they don't have food, but see this fish, see that the end here is on there? So they're very much like, someone here is over here, right? So they're very much feeding later on. It's still fresh to tank, right? But later on, they will actually eat the little critters that actually will be pushed up through all the whole system. So we don't even have mechanical filtration. We don't inhibit that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's a very big success for the TRITON method. It's kind of a circle, like a recycling kind of system, filtration system. So you don't do ozone, you don't actually kill anything in here, right? And the fish are awesome. Like my powder blue in the past was a really beautiful fish, like a really strong and beautiful fish. And I got him when he was this size, and he was cyanide caught. He was a cyanide fish, really bad shape.
Yeah.
And I got him, pushed him up, but then he was the king of the tank, and there was no spot, no nothing on him, right? And that's when you run a tank naturally. I have my most success with my aquariums when I run them naturally. All the corals are like survive from below. I had 1 meter corals, 1 meter clam in that tank, in Düsseldorf, in Germany, and everything was alive underneath. Like I have videos and pictures of it. Nobody believes that. Like there's no light, and that whole aquapora, all a meter alive underneath, and that's because of that kind of natural way. And if you use ozone, you kind of kill that stuff, and then it doesn't work that good. But it's not like you shouldn't use it. It's a tool, and you use it in a specific time, maybe, but exactly like the water change too.
Yeah. So if someone has an issue with their tank, do you think it's better to just do a couple big water changes to reset stuff, or is it better to kind of, ICP it, figure out what's wrong, and just tweak what's off?
So this is where the TRITON philosophy comes in, right? So it depends what your problem is, right? When we started, there was a lot of salts that were the problem. So if you do a water change with that salt, you definitely make it worse, You understand what I'm saying? Like this is the way we think, So you need to TRITON is rethinking reef keeping. So if you do a water change because you think the water change is the holy grail, that's wrong. That will kill your tank at one specific point in time. I'm sure of that. So you need to understand and know why you're doing things, right? So if the water you're changing is natural seawater, and it's really good, natural seawater is a really good way to do water changes. For me, that's the way to go, right? If it's possible. Then it's looking different. But if there was an oil tanker damaged right next to it where you take the water, bad,
Not a
right?
good day.
So again, a water change is just a limiting factor. So a water change can just do a little bit to your tank. So 10% water change really only takes 10% of the waste away, only put 10% of the trace elements back in, which is also not true. But the reality is it's just the 10%. So you do a 100%, yes, but that's not good for your tank. I'll tell you that, right? But so think of it that way. But the simplest way to explain why we do not do water changes is because we adjust. So 10% water change, 10% is 10% filtration a week, right? And 90% is that filter.
Yeah.
So if I can get that filter 10% better, I don't need water change. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? Like from the logic, very simple. But yeah, that's don't overestimate water changes. That's the main thing. And also don't overestimate everything else. Fluoride, one thing. Like people tell you how good fluoride is. Oh, you look, I'll sell fluoride. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. It's religion. I don't believe it. Right?
Yeah.
But it's okay to use if you do not think it will make your corals blue, if you do not think your corals will get stronger skeleton from it, if you don't, because that's all not proven stuff. That's just science. If you want to use it and see what happens. That's what I like reef keeping to be, And the same counts for water change. If you think water changes will help you and you do them every week, just because your nutrients will go down or you get trace elements in there, that's just not true. So you just do them because you're afraid of doing something, not doing it. Maybe that's the reason. Just to let you know, it's just that's the mentality, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's good. I like it. Okay, so on your systems for filtration, essentially skimmer and big refugium, more or less.
Yes, so as big as possible refugeium, 10 to 20% is kind of a good thing to have. We have a little bit more because we're going to kill this tank, absolutely smash it. But then we have a carbon and a Al99, a phosphate remover, right? And you alternate that a little bit, but that's kind of a monthly thing you change. And then you have the skimmer followed, and then it's going up right away.
Yep.
But all this pipe work is just like, flow pumps and craziness, but I can show you that if you want. But otherwise, it's very simple. There's nothing else. There's no roller mat. There's no nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's very simple, very easy. No UV, no ozone, no nothing. So it's going up again. Then you get supplemented, and you should be fine.
Okay. So you do use carbon. You said phosphate remover. What do you use to deal with phosphates?
Yeah, no, phosphate remover. It's in there. So it's carbon and phosphate remover. So either aluminium based or iron based, and we normally like switch between them, like 4 month aluminium and then 1 month iron based.
Okay.
Right. So something like Two Little Fishies, very good product for iron based. We don't produce any iron based one. And yes, but what is important is that the algae is before. So this setup is very strict. So you have the algae beforehand, then you run into the chamber with the skimmer, and then you run the water underneath to the chamber with the main return pump, and then you pump it up. Right, that's it.
So algae first. So does it make a difference of algae before skimmer for algae in your opinion?
Yes, it does.
Explain.
It does make
Explain
a
your
difference.
thought process.
So, when you turn it around, right, the algae is a high metabolism aquarium too. Okay, so what you want is all the protein, all the high metabolic kind of substances go to the surface of your tank, then they'll go into your rear box and then go down into your filter. But then actually, this is not a filter yet. For us, this is a refugium. So it's another tank without fish, without coral. It's a refuge for everything else, right? So then this is having its own metabolism. So it will create dirt too, right? So then this is going up to the surface, and it also will be swimming, like, surface gets sucked then into the next chamber. So you have the surface all here. So then this area is having a separation glass right here. And that separation glass, though, traps the surface. So from this chamber, it runs underneath, right? It's very simple, but very effective, because all the protein will be trapped here, because it won't go down. It won't swim on, because it's only the clean water. So that area gets super, super effective for the skimmer to sit in and take all the protein out, right?
Okay.
So that's the way we do it. And it's a very effective thing, because your skimmer not always works the same amount. It's not always the same dirt produced in a tank. You can switch them around if you have a solution for this. And I know one guy, he's running 10 years. I just met him in Orlando. He lives in Florida.
Yeah.
And Alberto, he said he's having a solution for this, and he wants to put the algae now in. He's doing 10 years though. He's running the tank 10 years like that. So he knows what he's doing. So then he want to change them to get more food out of the algae, which is true. That will happen. So if you can change them, but he promised me to send some stuff over to have a look at, but I don't know. He will do it. I'm pretty sure he will. So yeah,
Nice.
Good guy, very good guy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anyway, so that's what the reasoning behind it. So normally we do it that way.
No, makes sense. Okay, Kumar, question. Does different type of algae make a difference? So if you're using like Chaeto or Caulerpa or like a turf scrubber, is, in your opinion, any big difference of which algae you pick?
Yes, we don't pick them, right? Very important to, again, like it's a natural way of thinking. I know it's very difficult for people to sometimes understand, but I'm doing this for, I don't know, like 34 years or something, right? It's a long time, okay? So when you try to rule which algae will grow in there, that's not going to work for you very well, okay? So what happens is, if you imagine, it's like, soil, like plants on soil, right? They like different nutrients. So when you have one plant, it will like low pH and potassium and high nitrogen, for example, and the other plant, you go into the whatever home grow shop, whatever, and you get another kind of fertilizer, which is another composition for another plant, right? It's different.
Yep.
And the same counts for algae. But the soil for algae is that water in your tank. Okay, so when you have that soil, then if you change something to it, for example, you will feed this crazy Antias 5 times a day, then it definitely changes your soil, right? It definitely goes up in nutrients, or The balance between them is different. And then another algae will grow dominantly. So realistically, you do not change the algae, you change the soil and the other algae will grow, right? So in my tank, in the 7 years, I had 3 changes of algae. So dominant algae changed from being ketomorpha, which is the normal one you start with, because the easiest one just get, you put it in. But then it changed. Mine changed to Caulerpa racemosa, so the bubbly one, just grow crazy and really healthy, right? And then it actually moved to a red one, like a reddish macroalgae. And you just need to let that happen. But that's very important, so you do not limit this algae to grow. Very
So
important.
it's worth introducing multiple different types of refugium and see which one thrives and which one does the best in that.
Yeah, we normally just put a big live rock in there because they're normally
Okay, that's fair.
all on there, like they will grow out of it, but you can introduce some, and if you do it once, you can be sure they will be there. Even if they die, you don't see them, they will be there. So it is not a bad idea to do so. It's just hard to know which one would match which parameters. So
Yeah.
it's the live rock thing works really well for a lot of customers and for us
So
too.
basically, they're all introduced on the rock, and whatever one's likes the environment is
Exactly.
going to thrive.
Be sure, I had this in the live with Brazil yesterday. Be sure you use a full spectrum light though, like T5. That's why we recommend T5 and not LED.
For
Because LED
refugiums?
is the, yes, because it's limiting. LED is very narrow in the bands, like very narrow, like just blue, just red. And if you miss out on a spectrum that one of the other algae needs, then they won't grow. But that's something you do wrong because they should grow. Everything else matches, but not the light. So be careful with that, right? It is also something that some people fail because of that. Like they don't have the maximum out of it, because of that.
Now, I guess the other questions with that one, how much do you put into, I guess, intensity of the light? Like, do you do tons of wattage into the algae? Do you, moderate?
No, it depends. It depends. So in this tank, for example, when it's filled up, the biomass will be impressive, right? So I just tell you that to start. But we have a big refugium. So if we want the refugium to have higher metabolism, so more uptake of nutrients, more production of little critters, then we up the intensity of it. We never extend the time to 24 hours. That's not natural. So you should go always 12 to 14 hours max light. But if you want more, you up it. If you need less, and my Brazilian partner, he has very low nutrients right now, so he reduced the light on the algae a little bit. But the 12-hour period, the normal, sunlight kind of thing, is a natural thing to do. And please do not change that one. That's kind of important.
Okay. So 12 hours ideal. If you're pushing like 16, 18, is not as good for the algae in theory. I know
It's
it needs
very
a rest
unnatural.
break.
It's like you'll be awake for 18 hours. I mean, in Canada, people, they like to have that amount of light in summer and no light in winter. I think that's, but you know what I mean? It's just,
Do you know what was bizarre? This is completely off topic, but I was up north at like a diamond mine a while ago doing some work. And depends when you go there. Sometimes of the year, it's light basically 24/7. It's like midnight and you're like, yep, trying to sleep. The sun's out. And the other part of the year, it's like dark all the time. It's the most bizarre thing to like live in that. It's like 6 months of light and 6 months of darkness. Is weird.
I know, but that's what I mean. Like, this is not here though.
Yeah.
So we're very much always the same. So just to let you know, okay? So that corals and that animals do not like that, right? Yeah. So just keep it natural for them.
All right. Okay? I think mine's probably at like 16 hours. I will reduce it down a bit.
But you can hire the wattage. You can do that. It's like for your pocket, it's the same. It's just the same. Just go. It's just better to give it that rest phase. The resting time. It's good.
I guess one of the other older debates too is like bigger refugium or a smaller one with a more intense light or a bigger one with a less intense light. Does it balance out ish? If someone doesn't have space for 10-20%?
That will work. Yeah, that will work. So it's just like you need to harvest it more often. Like it's a bit more work for you because you're not allowed to let this algae die because it kind of squishes itself. Like this is not a good thing. So you go and harvest it and make it gardening a bit. So if it's big like that, you have time for that. Like if you if you are like, you know,
Ignore it for
if you,
longer.
yeah, exactly. Like if you have a little one, then you can't do that. You need to do it maybe every week and go a bit
Yeah.
bonsai style, you know, like, but it's still working. It's still working.
Okay. Now, so you also said you do run carbon on your tank. Can you change that monthly as you run it?
Yes, monthly. Actually, every 4 to 6 weeks, we normally change it.
Mm-hmm.
There's reasons, other reasons for it too. It's pretty good to have carbon on there because it takes toxins, and a lot of people think that, you know, this is absolutely heaven and it's such a beautiful, you know, all the pink fish and all the orange fish and they're so beautiful, but they actually, that's not the case, right? So everybody knows,
Reef
a lot
tanks
of
are a
people,
slow
you
motion
know,
war in my mind.
and absolutely, it's a war zone.
Yep.
Like, and I'm going to the reef, and every time I have another view on it sometimes, and it's like it's just a war zone. And even Montipora, like I see one Montipora grow over other coral,
Yep.
and take them live and kill them, and then you know, step into it, and it's a big hole. It's like crazy. So yeah, there's a lot of toxin created in that area. So you don't even know. There'll be like little soft corals producing toxins. There'll be a lot of you know, like tunicates and stuff that you might not even know. They're outside of your site. They're in the reef, and it's always good to have carbon for that reason too.
Mm-hmm.
It's also making your tank look much nicer because we're not running ozone, so it's kind of absolutely clear. You know,
Mm-hmm.
literally you can see the ICP right through there, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of
So
good too.
I used to always run carbon, and I swapped to ozone a while back, and I haven't used carbon in a while. Every once in a while, I put it in. Now, in my mind, it's basically it does a lot of the same things as carbon, but you don't have to like constantly buy it and refuel it in a
What,
sense.
you mean ozone?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in your opinion, is there any big disadvantage to ozone versus carbon?
Yeah, the disadvantage is that you kill too many things. You
Yeah.
know, like that's the only thing.
Okay.
Like I'm not against ozone. Ozone is a very specific tool and very effective. You know, it's very effective. So, but it is pretty. Yeah, it is had this ability to kill everything little. You know, like
Yeah.
that's not a. It's not making reef keeping easier in a way. You know, so carbon is from that perspective a bit better, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is why we use permanently carbon and permanently to not have any changes. Stability is very important in a system like that, in a very kind of, you know, successful system. It's always stable. So if you, it's really literally it might be only needed to have carbon in there once a while when the toxins are created, but you don't know that. That's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing. But the other way is, if you would take it out, put it in, take it out, put it in, then you always would change something. So, and
Yep.
that's not good. Yeah. So you know that Xenia, the pumping Xenia kind of, you know, when I had them when I was like 12, I was selling them back to the shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were so expensive.
Yeah.
That time, they were good times, good times. Make money with little, but they, when you put carbon in, then they close up. They don't like it. They don't pump, they close, right?
Yeah.
But if you run carbon for a longer time, they get kind of used to it and then they start pumping again. Yeah, but if you change it all the time, they will close all the time. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a very, like the stability is good for your tank. So you just keep doing that. That's better. Okay?
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, the dry reef. But seriously, why Refugeium over reactor? I'm running a reactors to grow whatever will spark some interest. I've tossed some macro in there. Nutrients have gone down from 35 to 10 and 0.33 to 0.05. A reactor is basically just a remote refugium. So if you don't have space in your sump, it's
Yes.
just a canister. It's doing the same job. It's just doing it in its
Yes.
own contained canister. So if you don't have the space in your sump, then yeah, a big reactor's, you know, basically a
Yeah.
remote refugium in a way.
Or algae turf scrubber is okay too. Like it doesn't necessarily like that. It doesn't create that amount of food, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it still works. Like, you know, the reality is, if you do not go 100%, but 95%, still it's enough for a lot of people to have a super nice tank. You know what I mean? So it's fine. Oh, I think Pax Bellum builds the reactors too. Like
Yeah.
they're very common. You know, like that's fine. Would
Yeah,
work.
no, and I've used them in the past and DIY'd them. Like honestly, they're a little more of a pain to clean, but they do the job. Just
Yeah, oh, you have no space. That's maybe better than not having one, you know? So that's all right.
Yep. A while back, there was a bunch of like back and forth about people whether refugiums or chaeto and algae are releasing like negative things into your water. You know, obviously, if you have a skimmer and chaeto that's going to deal with it, and yes, they'll probably suck up your trace elements. So as long as you're dosing them, it's probably not an issue. But they've been used for so many
Well,
years, I'd say they're pretty much tried and true. But any thoughts around that?
yeah, so there was something Salem came up with nutrient, like with organic carbon, for example, which is a very good point. Um, but again, so we do, we are the guys that measure organic carbon. So, you know, in a Triton tank, it's just not happening, right? It's just not going over that
Yeah.
amount that you don't want. It's more, organic carbon is more coming from outside. So that's kind of one thing that was, I would say, the most concerning thing that I had in the past, but that's why I measure it, so it's fine. We're measuring 7 years and monitor a lot of tanks, so it's fine. Um, the other thing is true with the micronutrients, but that's why we have the infusion. So it's a logical solution, you know, for all of the things, and that makes it actually grow really well because the algae will take a lot of stuff out that on the other side will force itself to go problematic, you know, but like, so it takes away everything and then you don't refill it. So it starves itself. So that's why you have that infusion bottle or you
So,
have the infusion that stuff. Yeah.
so is infusion basically just the trace element side of it?
Yes.
Separated out? Yeah, okay. I thought so. I just had
Yes.
to double check. Yeah.
So it's not, look, realistically, it's not making sense to create a trace element
Yeah.
solution, put it into a supplementation like calcium, magnesium, and so on, and
Hmm.
just say, you go, because that's everything your tank needs. And that's the sales part of it again. You know, that's
Yeah.
the part that we don't like, that we don't do. So this is not possible because all of you guys will have different corals in there. How can I make a solution for everybody working the same way? It's just not the way it works. And
Hmm.
some of them will have algae filters, some of them will have bacterial filtration, right? So how do you do that? It's so impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's just marketing. So what we did was obviously creating a trace element solution for a specific filtration, which is absolutely fine,
Yeah.
and then put your corals in, and we don't know what two corals you have, but then you can add your trace elements by doing the ICP test because you have a baseline, and what you measure is what your corals will take.
Hmm.
That's the way Triton works, and it's the only system in the world doing that this way.
Yeah.
So it's a logical thing. So, but if you go now ask me, okay, mate, but you obviously have just trace elements in there. Yeah, I can sell them to you. It's a little bottle called infusion. It's
Hmm.
so simple, you know.
So
But
if you're using a
why
calcium
is not any?
reactor or something
Yeah,
else, then infusion is the solution. If you're just dosing, core seven's the way.
yeah, cause yeah, if you just cause 7 base elements, you're fine too. But if you have, or if you even you go and use barling,
Hmm.
like just go and use 2-part Randy Holmes 2-part, right? And then you have this solution for your calcium and your magnesium, and I'm fine with that. Whatever you do in there, because that's simple. But then if you want trace elements on top to run a filter like that and make all this perfectly work, then you go infusion. And that's a scientific thing to do, you know,
Yeah.
because that's what this algae needs. That's a,
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Good. Catch up on a couple chat questions. Zoe Snow, does it matter or help to keep the algae tumbling in the refugium? In your opinion, does it make any difference if it tumbles or it's just sitting there?
no, I don't like it tumbling. I just have it like this, like just sitting there. See that? See
Yeah.
that? So just not tumbling, not
Mine
tumbling.
just grows into a
Um,
brick, so mine doesn't tumble either.
yeah, just I don't like tumbling,
Yeah.
but it's I don't think it's like super harmful or something. It maybe looks fancy, but it's not having an effect. Caulerpa obviously do not tumble.
Nope.
They will not tumble. So
Okay.
so you will have a hard time make them tumble, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just yeah.
All right.
It's
Louis.
I think it's a good idea. Kind of, it was an idea thing. I think BIS came up with it or somebody, or BIS promoted it at one point, which is okay. It's not a bad thing, but I don't do it too hard for me.
Not maybe a slight benefit to more light on the bottom, but that's probably about it. Aquakiller Lewis, best change I've ever done converting the tank to Triton. Alyssa, would you ever run a tank without a refugium?
Without the a refugium,
Yeah. Would you
I
ever do
had
it?
tanks without.
Would you
Yeah,
do
I
it in
had
the
them.
future? Again, ever?
Nah,
Probably not.
it's yeah, maybe yeah. if there's something else. So realistically, there's only two ways to run a system right now. If you really nail it down, it is either you run them with bacteria or with algae. There's no other way. Okay, so realistically, there's no other way. So if a third way will come up, Alyssa, I would do it. I would definitely go and try. But the bacteria, the bacteria is too problematic. There is too much, like, it's too hard for me. Like, I don't like it, and they reduce things down too much, and they give me a hard time. So this is why I use algae. This is why I went the algae way, because there was actually no other way. So,
Fair enough.
but in future, I'm not going to say no, but not bacteria,
Okay.
not bacteria. Listen.
Okay, Mark, do you have anything that remove tin? My ICP constantly shows small levels of tin and is driving me crazy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we're not going to lie to you. It's there. So, small amounts of tin is not that bad in seawater as it is in freshwater. Okay, so freshwater is even harmful for people, right? But in saltwater, it seems to be there, but there's so much load of other like elements in there that it kind of inhibit that dangerous kind of effect of it. If it's constantly low, I would try to find out why, but it could be in your rocks. It could be, that there's little things that you don't want to take the whole rock apart just to get rid of a little bit of tin, right? It will go away at one point normally. So if you're not adding it constantly, if you have ruled out all your supplementation that is going in there, not having tin, and your food for the fish, everything is gone in the tank, then I would just, look at it, monitor it. It's not pumping up a lot, just being a little bit. I would just leave it there. If you're happy, if you're happy with the tank, it's fine. It's not damaging you right away. Like it's not like killing everything. If it's not like 15 or 27 or something like that, it just look at it a bit and monitor it, but don't go crazy, because you going crazy would cause more harm to your tank, right? So
Usually
just
true.
keep calm,
Yep.
and contact us, talk to us. If you're worried, just do things like that before you do too much to your tank. Okay.
Okay, Kumar, in my experience, algae filters have reduced nitrate but not phosphate. Any solution for that? Well, there's always GFO and other phosphate removers directly if you got to target it. But
that's why we do it.
Yep.
So they do reduce phosphate, but they reduce it because you add them in a higher amount. So you add constantly more phosphate that algae would take up with the nutrient amounts. So that's why you have leftovers. And phosphate is also something that won't go out of a tank by degassing. So your nitrate will be chewed up by your sand, by your inner rocks. That bacteria will degas it. So, but the phosphate has no gas phase. So phosphate will always be in the tank, like a little rock, right? So you need to mechanically filter it. And it's just like, so there is one thing you need to understand though. Most of the problems you get is because you put things into the tank. That's the most of the problems you take. My dad always says, sugar into the tea is easy and sugar out is difficult, right?
fair
That's
points.
so true.
Yep.
So true, right? And that's the same with the tank, right? So whatever you put in, make sure you'll be able to take it out. That's the export, the export mechanism is so important for a successful reef tank. And that's why we focus on TRITON method to be a filtration method, not, a supplementation method. That's part of it, but it's not the TRITON method, right?
Okay, Alyssa, Ehsan, how do you run your GFO and carbon? Mine are in socks. Do you use reactors? You just let it passively do it? How do you run yours?
Reactors, and you run them from below. So maybe Sean can. I have one sitting there in the shed. So we run them from below. The water goes very slowly up. Then it runs through the GFO, so AL99 or GFO, and then it actually comes on the top, just slowly comes down. I'll show you. That's my reactor. See? Alyssa, can you see that? See? So below it's carbon, then it runs to the little white piece and then comes up on top. That's where the water comes out. Yeah.
Nice.
It's so very simple,
Yep.
very open. There's no gas build up in there because the top is open, and it runs very slowly. So it's not allowed to make them move, because then
Grind
the
each other
friction
down.
will cause, yes, and tear them, and you have all the stuff in the tank. You don't want that, right?
Yeah.
But it
So
will be more effective, but it's
yeah,
not good.
best to avoid the fines and the powders. And then I guess there's more reaction time, so the water coming out is actually fully
Yeah.
treated.
Yes.
Mo Reefs, do you worry about carbon media depleting any trace elements running at 24/7? I guess that goes for
Yes.
GFO and carbon. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We do, and we know they do, and that's why we have infusion to put it in again. That's
So
the simplest thing.
okay,
Yeah.
so if someone is just dosing core 7 with the trace elements in it, and they are running, Algae, GFO, and carbon, which also remove trace elements, would they need infusion on top, or would the core 7 have that all enough to
No,
kind
of
of
course.
balance it all out?
Yeah. So core 7 base elements have it all
Okay.
because they're made for this. We even tell you exactly how much carbon and Al99 to use because of that reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We need to know exactly how much it is because then it will match the infusion amounts.
Yeah.
But if you run the other methods, you won't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The other method will take care of maybe carbon a little bit, but not of Al99 and not of anything else. Right?
Yep.
So just to let you know, there is a bit of stuff going on in Brazil right now where they say, for LPS only systems, reef supplements work really, really well. I don't know why. That's what they say, but it's not intended to be like that. So just to let you know.
Okay. AR99, is that like aluminum GFO? What is AR99?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was
So
my like contextual guess, but
yeah. It's 99% aluminium oxide
okay.
base, right? So that's why L99. The the reality is we do not Triton do not produce anything that is already available good in the market. We don't have salt, for example. We don't do it because there is enough salt on the market, good enough, right? We don't do a GFO because there is good GFO on the market. Like I said, Julian Sprunk's GFO is very good. We don't tap into that market. There's no sense for us. We are an innovation company. We do innovation. That's our goal. And I think we've proven to be very innovative in the past, so that's kind of the thing. Like when there's something new that makes sense and it's not on the market, we'll do it.
Makes sense. Now, earlier you also mentioned that you alternate between like iron-based, aluminum-based GFOs. Is there any reason to swap between them? Like, is there any advantage or
Yes.
disadvantage to sticking to one over the other?
Yes, there is, because the aluminium one will release leach aluminium into your tank. So your aluminium amount will go up over time when you're using Al99 or any thing aluminium in your tank, which is absolutely normal because it dissolves to a specific amount, right? And we are worried about aluminium over long-term toxicity, like in deodorant, it's just there is a worry about it. We've not seen anything, but it's like something of concern. And these tanks, normally they are 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, and they just keep running. So we need to be watching this long-term toxicity.
Yeah.
And what we do for that is changing over to the GFO because the GFO will take up aluminium. So it reduces it right away. So what you do is like every 4 months, you do it, then you reduce your aluminium again, you go aluminium again.
Okay.
And the aluminium has benefits compared to the GFO. So our aluminium will take barium, for example, will take arsenic, will take a lot of byproducts and take them out of your water. And that's really good for you too, So having that is secure over that time. And then the GFO swap for 1 month is not making it too bad. So you kind of solve a problem, with that.
Okay. I've never used an aluminum-based one, so it's actually good to know what the benefits were on that one.
It's slower in uptake on phosphate. It's not as harsh as, like if you would put a lot in, it will not drop your phosphate like a rock, like, a normal GFO would do. That.
That's a good thing for a new reefer.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that. But on the other side, for a new reefers overfeed the tank, so they run up in phosphate. And this thing is a bit slower taking it up. So a lot of people say, oh, it's not working, and then they're like, oh, how much do you feed? And it's like, oh, just like 20 little, blocks a day. And it's all right. That's
Yeah.
it's definitely working, but yeah, that's you know
Well,
what I mean. Like
you have
really
a
balance
small
it up.
army of Antheus in that tank, so I'm guessing you have a small shovel worth going in there a day to keep them all happy.
Yeah, they're pretty good. The Oronentis right now, they eat everything. They're like super good. They're fat too, I can tell you. And they built two groups. So there is one
Yeah.
group up here, right? And there is another group just here following another kind of people. They're living in there. So the Oronentis, they're really, really good eaters. In the moment, I think. I mean, I'm pretty sure they'll be absolutely fine and grow. I have the Pescalus in there too, which is not Pescalus. We think it's another species, so we need to find out. But
Hmm.
they are hard. They are hard. Like half of them still not eating. I'll
Yeah.
feed them with live food, so that's kind of the see the little bubbly. That's Artemia.
Ah,
So
okay.
I'll,
Yeah.
I'll feed them. I'll
Yeah.
feed them live. But you need to do that. Like I mean, right now the good thing, and I said that too. That's a good tip for people if you like antias and keep antias. Antias were the first fish in this tank, right? So that's something people don't do. They're like, oh, that expert fish. So I will run my tank first, and then at one point I put in antias, which makes it really hard because then you have corals in there, you have everything, and you overfeed. Then you just bring everything to a collapse because everything is high nutrient. So right
Yeah.
now I can just afford it. I have a massive filter for nearly no fish, and I can just feed them like crazy, and nothing happens. So
Hmm.
that's kind of the way to go. If you plan the next tank and you want antias, the other thing is I have little fish up here, very important maybe to people. I think I told the boys, see that little blackish, can you see that little blackish fish over there?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah, like they have blue eyes. I'm just going closer, maybe you see them. They're
Okay.
just
Yeah.
swimming in the, see them?
Yeah.
There, right? The tree.
Those are nice.
They're very important too. So what I do is I get them in there, and this fish, they're called dart fish. We call
Yeah.
them dart fish here. Julian will know exactly the name. Like it's just like, yeah. Anyway, it's Nemateleotris. It's like doesn't matter. They swim all the time, right? So what happens is they don't hide. These fish swim all the time, and then if they're afraid, they will jump out of the tank, right? So
Yep.
they're not going into the rock.
Hmm.
So you need a bunch of this fish when you have antias like the Oronentis, because Oronentis come from 90 meters deep. So they will hide in the rock
Yeah. They're
and they won't
skittish.
come out, right? And they will be so afraid to come out. So then you will feed as much as you want. They won't come out. They're too afraid something comes and eats them. So then you have this fish, they will be swimming out there. So the Oronentis will think, oh, they're swimming out there. So I can go swimming out there. So they do that. And then you have them get them to the food. So there's
Yeah.
little tricks to it, right? So just do it. And then and that's kind of the way we do it here. And the other mistake maybe a lot of people do is to put the wrong antias together.
Hmm.
Like, the easy antias are normally super aggressive antias. So you can't do this with all antias, like two types of antias in one tank. It's going to be hard. Just be aware
Yeah.
of that. Okay?
Nope, that makes sense. Yeah, it looks beautiful. Like even now, I feel like I have too many big tangs in my tank. I'm like, if I do it again or another one, I'm going to do more of an army of smaller fish because I love the aesthetics of the scale it creates.
Yeah. Yeah, I very much like big corals
Yeah,
and small fish on top. That's
it,
what I like.
it's
Like
a
it's
much
kind
better
of
scale of things.
yeah. I like the slice out of the reef, like, but yeah, it's changing. There are a lot of people do different. Like I don't like blue light too.
Hmm.
I'm not the blue light guy, but a lot of people like blue light. So it's a hobby, mate. It's good. It will be a good change for everybody. It's all right.
No, I agreed. Yeah, what do they call it? Dither fish, I think they call it. Like the ones that are always out to lure out the other fish. But yeah,
Which one?
dither fish. I think that's just like a name that's in my head for whatever reason. But basically,
Oh yeah,
it's a fish that's more bold and will lure out the shy fish.
yeah, exactly. That's such a good tactic to do. Like there's such a good way to do it because it always works. It even works with fishing, but it's all right. I'm not going there now.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But yeah, I definitely want to live with those guys because they are jumpers. Just for the chat, if I've ignored anyone's questions, just ask it again. Tag me.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, perfect. Actually, okay, back to Triton Method. Is there any other things that you've in your mind makes Triton stand out versus other methods and other different methodologies in reefing?
Yes, there is. So look, when we use the Triton method there's two things. We use the TRITON method for another reason too, right? So when when I started ICP testing, I was in need to produce set points, right? Because nobody was knowing how much vanadium, how much zinc, how much iron, whatever. It's not there was no knowledge about it. There's no book written about it, right? What is needed in a tank. So I created these set points, but we need to work on them a long time. So we created them, then we went and changed them a little bit and adapted them. But one of the things to understand what trace elements do in an aquarium or to which corals or to which animals is to have a standard framework for science. So when you see this, right, everybody that runs full TRITON method runs exactly that. Like there will be little changes, but mostly it will be exactly that, right? So what we have is when we do our measurements in all these tanks, and it's thousands of tanks now, I mean, obviously we are like all over the world, then we can really assess what specific elements could do. We can extract data, real data, out of this always the same aquariums, while nobody else on this planet can do that. Right? So you really need labs around the world. You need that whole system. You need to have people agreed on doing this. Like that was hard too. Over 17 years now. Obviously, we are pretty successful with it. But that's kind of a very important part that people do not know. So the knowledge extracted out of this is unbeaten. So that's why we're very protective about it. That's our IP,
Yeah.
But that's also why we can produce this super high level of product for the customers, right? Because we really know these things and we can extract that.
Yep.
The other way to looking at it, the second one, is because we do not do many changes to the system, this is also the most scientifically known system in the world. Means if there is something wrong and you come to us and say, Jules, like to Julian and say, Julian, I have an issue, I have cyanobacteria everywhere. Julian will right away say, okay, you're under the TRITON method, yes, click the box, and then, okay, so you don't have enough live rock. Right, so this is kind of the first, you know what I mean? Like it's because we have seen that so often in 17 years.
Yeah,
While
you know
nobody
it very,
else,
very well at this point.
exactly, then nobody else can deliver that because they never did that, never went the hard way. Because this is hard, I'll tell you. From a perspective of a businessman, people hate me for this because it's so difficult to commit to everything at once. Like it's people, other companies would have, we call that in German, we will call that, they handcuffed you, right? Because they say, oh, if you got TRITON method, you're not free. You need to do everything like they say. You need to have an algae. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to sell against somebody saying, do whatever you want, you will have a nice tank, right? And that was the hard part. But because we went the first 5, 6, 7 years, it was really difficult to get that kind of, this thing to the people, this mindset. But after that, it just went up, up, because the successful was talking to the people. It was easy to convince them because we knew what is wrong, what is not. That's kind of the part that kind of worked out for us. So these two things are very, very, very important and very, very, if you want to go behind the scenes to understand it, very important if you want to understand TRITON.
Okay. Kumar, what is the next innovation in Ehsan's mind? What do you think is the next big thing in reefing or the next big thing to make people successful?
I don't tell you.
Top secret, it's the next product. We'll find out.
No, listen. Okay, so this is what I always get asked, and there's a
Yeah.
reason for it. Because obviously we did the one big thing, ICP. Then we did the next big thing. It was trace element solutions, a single. Then we did the next big thing. I understand that, but right now everybody is watching us all the time. And I'll tell you, marketing is not stopping. They will just come up. When I say something now, there will be next product sitting on the shelf somewhere. And I will never support that because there's nothing behind it. Okay, so we do a lot.
Yeah.
We did something. We did that food thing, with the fish poo. I don't know if you know that, infuse, which kind of is, literally fish poo, like recreated fish poo if you want, and that works really well. But we do a lot of things right now out there too, and we spend a lot of money. We invest a lot, and I want to thank everybody that supports us by buying our product, because that's what supports us doing these things. And we obviously do it. We really put money into it. I'm not going to buy me another house. I'm putting money back into this knowledge, right? And that's, I think a lot of people appreciate that, but I appreciate a lot of people that know that and do it for that reason, right?
Yep.
Because science is difficult when you don't have money, right? But that's kind of, we're doing it, and there will be something. And I'm just waiting for a lot of things to happen. We have something prepared, but I can't talk about it because my lawyer will kill me for it.
Top
So
secret
like,
in the works to be determined.
I'll tell you, when you go for things like patents and stuff, you can't. You just can't. As soon as you say it, the patent will not be gone through, so you need to keep it. You need to keep it for yourself.
No, that's fair enough. A couple people are asking about why your sump water level so high. Yeah, that is the refugeium. That is where you're growing all the algae.
Yes. Yeah. And then it's going over with a little waterfall. I'll show you. Waterfall. So that's the refugeium, right? And then it's going over with that. Can you see that little there behind that thing? So it's going over here, and then that's the water. That's the water amount in the actual sump, right? So where the thing sits. Do you guys want to see the lab?
Yeah, we
Show
do.
you the lab too.
We do. Okay, well, we're on our way. Snowy Fox.
Go.
If you find Boreopsis in your sump, or your refugeium, would you remove it, or would you just let it grow in there?
Nah, I would remove it.
Yeah.
There is another way too. There is you can use lithium, overdose lithium. That works too. We found out actually in America, when I was on MACNA talking there, I said that I think 2014. So you can go really high on lithium if you want to just affect. Not all of them will react, but a lot of them will actually be affected by it. So yeah, I'll definitely take it away. Barbs is nothing good. Pest, I just don't want to. Yeah,
Perfect.
take it away.
In the lab. Nice.
Yeah, in lab. So that's an ICP. That's that's an Australian one. Yeah, we are not running it to date. That's why we're not running it now. We will run it still. So that's all the system that we have. So that's an injector that we built on our own. So we kind of use that. That's something that's inside an ICP. I don't know if anybody ever seen inside the ICP. That's the way it looks, right? So the ICP flame will be right here. Show you. Right? And it will split everything, atomize it. So it will, it's so hot. It's like 10,000 degrees hot. And so it's a very simple kind of system if you look at it, but it's quite hard to understand how to use it. So if you want to, so all this part here, right? All this part that you see, all these little things, and then going in here, and all this stuff, that's all us. So that's all our IP, and we're not telling anybody how it works, right? So that's what I made up when I started ICP. It was not, you can buy these machines, like you can buy them from many brands, it's no problem, right? But many people do not know that when you bought them, you can't do anything with them. So you need then to create a method of analysis, you call it, right? So you need a method again. It's actually the right word for it. So the method of analysis, and that's what is our IP. So we never tell anybody how we do it, and it's a very complicated thing. But it's actually about how to get the liquid into the nebulizer, and which nebulizer, and how to do it, how much pressure, how much heat, how much whatever, to then actually measure your water. That's the way it works, right? And because nobody knows that, they can't copy it.
So, other random question. If I send in a sample and it makes it to you in a day or it makes it to you in 2 weeks, does the time sitting in that vial make much of a difference on the parameters? Like, do they shift or do they stay fairly consistent?
Some of them will make a little bit of a difference. They are not, it is still fit for purpose. So I'm very fair. That's still fit for purpose. So still you will see if there's anything you do wrong. Because I said that the purpose of this test is 70 to 80%. I would say it's now 70, but it was 80% error correction. Means you want to see if you have done something wrong. That's it. Okay. So for this purpose, I think 1 week, 1.5 weeks, still okay. Okay. So it worked for us. Even in America, when we had no American machine, right? So we're running tests now in America for sure. There's some elements like phosphorus, there's some elements like tin that may have a little bit more effect on them on the long term than maybe, calcium and magnesium, for example. Some of them will also have maybe a downside when you freeze them. For people in Canada, that's sometimes happening.
Yeah.
You ship them, yeah, that's fine. But we tested it. I actually, there's videos about me dipping it in liquid nitrogen and freeze the shit out of
Yeah.
it and then test it, and it was the same, right? So it's
Okay.
not too bad. One thing but you need to understand is the speed is important for you for your aquarium, because your aquarium will change. The wild will not change,
Yeah.
but in 1 week your aquarium is different,
Well, I
right?
guess are you dealing with an issue, or are you just doing a spot check to see how your tank is at? I guess that's probably another
Um,
consideration.
it is both. In both ways, it is better to have the snapshot closer to timely,
Yeah.
because in any way it's better to know to react when closer to the point where you have took the sample. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? That's why we try to bring the service to the countries. So this is why we do. That's a lot of effort, making sure that all of these machines work similar, all of them have the same quality, and it's very difficult. It's a very different thing to set up a machine in Brazil than setting it up in Los Angeles. I'll tell you that. That's an absolute difference, right?
Yeah.
So, but this is really important for this new way of reef keeping. The modern way of reef keeping needs that speed too. Not
Hmm.
only because it's more useful, but also because I know reef keepers. I'm doing science on them. They
Yeah.
are not willing to wait.
Well, I'm
So
just curious because, no one's doing it in Canada, so I'm shipping it to the States or Germany or somewhere. And it's like, okay, do I go for the $10 shipping or the $30 shipping? Does that week difference make a big thing? I was
no,
always just kind of curious.
yeah. If you look again, if you're running the TRITON method, you're doing it every 3 months. Your tank
Hmm.
looks good. Everything is fine. Just ship it and then
Yep.
wait. There's no. That's just like a kind of thing you do from time to time. If you're in the mode of changing things, dosing a little bit, if your tank looks good, but you want a little bit better, you want the banana locani to go yellow like crazy, something like that, then you would be all right. You know, um, I'll do more often and I'll do it more closer. So I will pay the extra shipping.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, Kumar, why was the ICP machine actually created? Does not seem like a gadget that was made for reef tanks only. No, it is like a scientific machine that, because of the ICP testing in the hobby, it's made it affordable for an average person to do it, not some overly priced lab test somewhere.
No, and it is in our industry. I get asked very often why I don't do like a certification on it. Countries have certifications for lab testing, and this is because people do not understand how these things work. Like a certificate would be a guy that would come in here, look, and then I would show him a method
Hmm.
that would match every click box he has, right?
Yep.
So that would be like, I would do 20, tests, like 10 or 20 standards, and I will do runs with him, and then he will be happy. He'll sign it off, and then give me the paper and put the certificate on my wall. And when he's out of out of here, I would just change everything and run it exactly the same. And
Yeah.
I would have a certificate, but
It's
this is the
pointless.
way it works.
Yep.
It's pointless, and it just costs money.
Hmm.
So even if somebody has a certificate, doesn't mean that he's running the test by the certificate. He's running it in a different way, maybe. For companies that do lab testing, and I'm obviously an analytical chemist kind of. So when you go lab testing in like big lab companies that do it for the court,
Hmm.
they will be audited all the time by the government. They can't do this stuff.
Yeah.
They can't just, but they take a lot of money. Like you'll
Hmm.
be super rich, So, but there's no need for doing it in the wrong way. So
Yep.
in our industry, be realistic. There's a lot of things you need to trust people with. And I've seen stuff. I've seen an Italian company, and I'm not going to name it, that went and didn't really. It was all over the place. It was just not correct. There was everything wrong with it, and it's just something that you need to trust, and And again, on the other side, people will try to break your trust in the company you use, or, you know, there's something, it's all going around. So you need to just calm down, look at, you know, do you have this ever seen the machine that is doing your testing? That's a very important thing. You know, like this one, but I have a video coming out for the American one, for example, and I'll show all our ICPs around the world. Is there enough transparency? Like, you know, is there somebody you can talk to explaining to you that stuff? And like a lot of things, is it proven? You know, I mean, we made this up, so we've proven it to work. That's why everybody else is copying it. So for us, that's fine, you know, but is there anybody else having the same kind of proof? This is the things you need to go for when you have a fit for purpose system, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but because everybody can buy this machine, like everybody, it's not that expensive too. Like, don't think it's super expensive. It's an expensive car, right?
Yep.
And an ICP MS is costing similar amounts, for example. You know, just to let you know, it's not like, oh, the MS is super expensive or something. It's not, just another machine. You know.
No, it makes sense. Okay, so question for you. So if I want to try full Triton on one of my systems, and I do use a calcium reactor, and I also do dosing. If I'm doing a blend of the two, I mean, I'm sure the answer is ICP, but to do, you know, say half of it's core 7 and the other half is a calcium reactor, and I guess you would just make up the difference with infusion on top of that to kind of balance out.
Yeah. Very simple. And you bet that's a really good way to do it. That's why I'm doing it too, because you can, you know, the calcium reactor is a low pH delivery system. So it delivers CO2, so it delivers low pH.
Yeah.
And core 7 is a high pH delivery system. That's
Balance
like 11.5. Yeah. You can pinpoint it. It's so good. Like, and that's making a big difference to stability. It's making it the next step more stable. That's why we're kind of trying to do this here. And also because the corals will have in here, with the amount of light, we have a lot of light on this tank. That's all exposed, and it's 21 of them. It's very special. Like, you don't need to do that at home, right? Just don't do it, right? But that's kind of what we obviously want to reach the next level up, you know? Like, my old tank was crazy, but this needs to be kind of more crazy. You know how it is. Like, I mean, that's the way it is, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but this means that we'll have a lot of metabolism, so we need to be able to keep up with that demand, you know?
So
that's why we do.
If someone's using core 7, is there any preference on the numbers that you're trying to target and maintain with it? Like, you know, some people like higher alg, some like lower. Does it make any difference, or as long as it's all in balance, it doesn't really matter?
Yeah. So I like it. Like I say, I like it very natural. That's the main thing we see with systems like that. With our system is, as more natural it gets, as better it gets. It's just like so cool and so easy going. So much polyp extension, no feeding corals. Everything looks awesome, right? So what you want there is just giving them the same habitat they have in the ocean. So I would always aim for 7 to 8 DKH, not higher than that, right? It's also because you waste a lot. So if you go higher than 8, 9, 10, then you go and have a lot of wastage on the calcium side. So you have precipitation, and that's also not what you want, right? So it's not making sense to have too high. It's good to have it stable and run it there and just really enjoy that natural habitat. And people, I had it in my talk. People think corals, like people have that kind of strange feeling of corals being little domesticated animals. Like, they're not pets, all corals and all fish you keep are not pets. They are wild animals. And even wild animals, even if they're in the aquarium for 15 years, they're genetically still the same genetic animal. I had it with a dog and a wolf. So I had showed the dog and said, this is not your coral. The wolf is your coral. It won't eat you, but it's a wild animal.
Yep.
So realistically, if you want to be successful, you need to give a wild animal the wild habitat. We're not there. It will take 50, 60 years until we have a domestic animal, a coral. We don't have that yet. Just because we cut them and put parts away, it doesn't matter. It's still the same one, the same one.
No, that makes sense. Okay. Asking for a friend if I check phosphates for the first time on a new tank and reading is greater than 0.9. Okay, nitrous phosphates. How do you pay much of attention to the levels? In your opinion, is there like a too high point that you'd worry about it? At what point would you say, okay, it's worth using GFO to knock it back down?
Yes, so I don't, yeah. So I don't like high phosphates, right? Because, and I had that in the last one too. It's funny. It's always very similar. So the phosphate will, at a specific amount too high, will still not affect your coral directly.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like really inhibiting the growth of it or something. But it will cause passive pressure. That's what we call it. So it will cause algae to grow more, aggressively, so it will create the environment of the coral to turn into something bad for it, okay? And that will cause you to maybe have problems with your corals. It's not the phosphate hitting the coral, it's the phosphate going over the algae hitting the coral. You imagine that, right?
Yeah.
And then if you go way too high, then it will have a direct effect because of the calcium inhibition of calcium phosphate, But realistically, most people have the problem of the passive thing. So if you imagine, but you would have added a lot of algae grazers, like, cleaning crew to the tank, you possibly do not get any problem with your corals because they still not having, the algae will have a passive problem with the grazers, so you get eaten up all the time, and then your coral are still fine to go. So realistically, yes, always try to reduce it because it's very low in natural seawater habitat.
At what point is too high or too low, in your opinion?
I think 0.7 is still some 0.07 is something I still measure in seawater. Okay, so in shore seawater I still measure that, even up to 0.08. When it comes to 0.1, 0.1 kind of, you get into this into this kind of pressure point.
Yeah.
Then up to 0.2, but everything over 0.3, I would really say go low, go down.
Right.
You can, if you can't get it down right away, you can lift your DKH. That helps, for any reason. Nobody knows why, but it helps. But try to get it down. 0.3.
Okay, perfect. I see that one come up a lot, so it's a good one. Okay, I do got to wrap her up pretty quick here. I hear the kid crying in the background. But any last questions, be sure to ask them again just before we finish up. I definitely do appreciate you coming on today. And
no worries.
And you've lured me into attempting to try it on one of my systems. So I've never tried like full Triton, so I'm gonna try it soon and just see.
However, I'm very surprised. That normally what we do here, then it causes way more questions. So whenever you want me to come back with more questions, I'm coming. I have no issue with that. Just let me know.
Okay, perfect. We'll round up all the random questions we get after the video and all the replays, then we'll circle back in a bit. And I'm gonna try it too on a tank for fun, just because I've basically done it like hybridy, but not like full official. So I'm gonna try it. It'll be good.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your support, man.
No, definitely.
That's awesome.
Acro Killer, Alyssa Roofing with those Sparkly. Thank you guys for super chats. Much appreciated.
Oh yeah. Acro Killer has a special fragging device. I was still waiting for the video. He using it.
Oh, I need to see this now too. Okay.
Oh, he will hate me for that now.
now you piqued my curiosity. Okay, I will definitely have you on in the future, and we'll circle back to some more stuff. But I appreciate you coming on today.
No worries at all.
Awesome. And everyone else watching, thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. Any questions we didn't get to, put it in the comments after the video. And next live stream, when we circle back, we will definitely hit them up. Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. Okay. Sorry for my crazy accent. Have a good one.
You don't even have an accent. You're good. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye.